A Place Called Home by Laurie Wick. Chapter 30. How many pancakes have you eaten? I think 5. 5? My goodness, you're going to pop. This brought gales of laughter from Christine's small charge. Christine couldn't think of when she'd had more fun. Emily had thoroughly captured her heart. They started the dishes together. Emily was on a stool and a drying towel in her hand and teaching Christine a song when Grandma M called from the parlor. Emily, your dad's here. Squealing, Emily jumped down from the stool and headed through the door, with Christine right behind her. Emily threw herself into Mark's arms. Father and daughter hugged for a while before Mark took a seat. Emily sat in his lap with an anxious Christine and Grandma M on the couch across from them. Mark looked both tired and happy. Grandma M had asked no more than if everyone was all right, knowing that Mark wanted to share with Emily first. He was careful to talk directly to his daughter, even though he could feel Christine and his grandmother's eyes on him. Emily, do you know why you're over here this morning? Yes, 'cause Mama's having our baby. That's right. You have a brand new baby sister. Mark watched Emily's face as she comprehended his words. Her eyes widened before she asked, The baby's already here? She's here. Can I play with her? This question brought laughter from the adults. Mark stopped when Emily tugged on his shirt. What's her name? Her name is Elizabeth. Elizabeth May Cameron. Mark's voice held contentment and pride. My name is Emily Suzanne Cameron. Emily's voice was stubborn and her lower lip trembled just a bit. Mark immediately recognized the signs of jealousy and lifted Emily until they were nearly nose to nose. I know that's your name. I remember the day you were born and named you after your great-grandma M. And right now, Elizabeth is the most blessed little girl in all the world to have a big sister as wonderful as you. The words were exactly what Emily needed to hear. She gave Mark a hug that threatened to cut off his air before scrambling down from her father's lap and announcing she was off to see Mr. Turley. The back door slammed and she was gone. How's Sue? She's good, Gram. Things went much faster this time. Maggie, of course, is incredible. I could have used her when Emily was born. Elizabeth is such a beautiful name. What time was she born? Just before 5. What time do you think you'll be over? Mark stood. I've got to get word to the ranch and Julia. Why don't we keep Emily another night and come over mid-morning tomorrow? We were headed to the ranch this week, but that can wait. Maybe when you and Julia go riding on Saturday, Christine, you could stop out there. That's fine. Anything to keep Emily another night. Christine smiled at Mark. She slept with me last night. Did she hog the bed? No, with this cool weather we just cuddled up together in the middle. Well, I can't thank you enough, and I'll see you tomorrow. The next 24 hours went by in a rush. Emily helped Christine with all her work, including the feeding of the stock. It took twice as long to get everything done, but it was also twice as fun. By the time they were walking over to see baby Elizabeth, she and Christine were fast friends. Grandma M and Christine sat in the living room while Mark carried Emily upstairs to see her baby sister for the first time. About 10 minutes passed before Mark came partway down the stairs and called to them. Sue was in bed, sitting up against the headboard. Beside her was Emily, looking proud and holding a tiny bundle on her lap. The women approached the side of the bed. Upon seeing her newest great-granddaughter, Grandma M began to cry. Christine didn't cry, but stood in wonder at the tiny person before her. Sue's eyes went to Mark at the foot of the bed. They exchanged a warm look at Christine's reaction. Emily, can Christine hold our new baby? Her mother asked softly. Oh, no! Christine exclaimed loudly, making Elizabeth start. Quietly now. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to frighten her. She's fine. She'll have to get used to noise if she's going to survive around here, Sue assured her. Emily spoke from her place on the bed. This is my baby Eliza, Christine. It was Christine's turn to cry, and her voice sounded choked through tears. Oh, Emily, your baby Eliza is beautiful. Emily began to get squirmy, so Mark rescued his youngest daughter. Holding her, he turned to Christine. You're welcome to hold her. Christine shook her head no. Elizabeth was so new and helpless looking against Mark's chest. "How about great-grandma?" Mark asked with a smile. Grandma M, still sniffing, replied, "Let me dry up a bit, and I'll sit down and hold her." Some 20 minutes later, Elizabeth began to fuss, and Sue looked tired. Mother and daughter were left alone. Downstairs, Maggie and Christine prepared lunch. Right after they ate, Julia showed up with the boys. She and Mark hugged for long moments, brother and sister sharing in this special event together. Joseph Cameron Sr. had delivered Calvin, but Mark and Julia were recalling the night Mark had delivered Charles. Suzanne, his nurse at that time and not his wife, had assisted. Mark had commented aloud as he held his minutes-old nephew, his eyes a bit wet. "The only thing better would be to deliver one of my own." As Mark said these words, his eyes locked with Suzanne's, the room and its occupants fading from sight as this young doctor and nurse regarded each other, their hearts in their eyes. Julia found out later that Mark had asked Sue to marry him that very night. Arriving very late, back at Mark's office to clean up, Mark had cornered Sue in the equipment room. "I saw something in your eyes tonight, and I want an explanation." Sue, painfully shy at that time, had tried to step past him, but he would have none of it. "Move out of my way, Dr. Cameron," she'd ordered as firmly as possible, her heart pounding in her chest. "Not until you tell me," he stated quietly. She could see he was not going to budge. "All right," she cried. "I'll tell you. I did exactly what you told me not to do after you hired me. I've fallen in love with you. But you need not worry that I'll be a problem, Dr. Cameron, because I'm leaving first thing in the morning." This painful admission out, Sue buried her face in her hands and burst into tears. Mark's arms had come out and gently pulled her against his chest. Remembering the day a few weeks after she had arrived when he had uttered these words, Mark was disgusted. What conceit! He saw now that he had said them as a defense against the attraction he felt for her immediately upon seeing her, an attraction he felt as it grew daily. An attraction he fought as it grew daily. Mark had pulled out a handkerchief as Sue's crying subsided. He gently dried her tears before bending his head and tenderly brushing her lips with his own. A declaration of love fell easily from his lips and came straight from his heart. Sitting in his office, they had talked until sunup. The next day, a beaming Mark and radiant Sue had announced to the family that they would be married. Now, 5 years later, the family did a little reminiscing. Christine was all ears when Julia began to question Mark about the birth, the water breaking, the time spent pushing, etc. Remembering the night when Raven was born, Christine spoke without thinking. "It's a little like when a horse foals." This statement brought complete silence, and then uproarious laughter. Christine's embarrassment was saved by Charles, who was quite interested in the idea of a horse having a baby, something he had never witnessed but wanted to. He began to question her. The adults in the room were more than a little surprised at her knowledge. Grandma M questioned Christine on her experience. "We didn't live right in town," Christine explained, "so there were no children or young people nearby. When I first came to live with my grandfather, his stables were full, about 15 horses. When I was 10, he first allowed me to watch the births. By the time I was 12, I was assisting. But then grandfather had begun to sell out. Without friends near, seeing them only at school, horses became my world. I never told him, but it was torture every time he sold another horse. It had always been just a hobby with him, and he said that when a hobby gets to be more of a headache than fun, it's time to call it a day. By the time I was 16, we were down to 3 mares, one of which was pregnant. I helped when Gypsy gave birth to a perfect little mare. Had he been a stallion, he would have sold it, but it was a mare, so grandfather gave her to me." Christine fell silent then, a bit appalled at the way she had shared so much of her past. Christine would have been horrified if she could have seen the wheels turning inside the heads of the 3 adults seated across from her. It was as if the lights had come on. Christine was a new Christian, and she had just shared with them her knowledge of horses. There were 2 unmarried men in the family who ran a breeding ranch. Julia went upstairs to see Sue and the baby. Mark had a call to make, and Grandma M took the children to the front room for a story. Christine rose to help Maggie with the dishes, unaware of the new development in everyone's mind. Christine didn't stand a chance.